The hardest step is definitely the first one. Inspiration comes after action, not the other way around.
YouTube was the launchpad for a lot of different media opportunities.
Anyone can leverage YouTube as it's the second most searched engine on the planet.
Talk to me a little bit about content.
When I started making YouTube content, I really had no idea what I was doing. I do think everything we do, including YouTube, should be towards getting leads.
Welcome to the A-List. My name is Chris Linsell, Director of Content here at Luxury Presence. My guest today is Ben Belack, a standout content creator and a top-performing real estate agent in Beverly Hills and Los Angeles with more than $1 billion in closed sales. Ben's YouTube strategy has powered so many successful parts of his business, and today we're going to break down exactly what he's doing, what he's looking at, and what he thinks is important for the future. Ben, welcome to the A-List.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Ben, you've embraced the camera as a part of your career journey, not just in real estate, but even before then. Talk to me a little bit about content and how content creation has played a role in your development as a professional and specifically as a real estate professional.
When I was pursuing a career as an actor, I looked at anything that was reality kind of as like the enemy. When there was an actor strike, I hated it because it was taking jobs away from the actors. And then not cut to decades later, I'm in front of the camera doing things that are similar to it. And I realized there was really only two ways where you could have a successful career as a real estate agent. The first way was seeing my mentors in the business like Mauricio Umansky, Billy Rose, Blair Chang, people that had been in the business for decades, just getting incoming calls as a divisive tenure. And you can't rush tenure. You just have to be in the business for a long time so your past client list can grow and mature into referrals. The other way I saw was TV. I was like, that's the shortcut. I wanted to catch up and I wanted to rise to a higher level relatively in a shorter period of time. I realized that I needed to focus first on being known, because there was a time where I was sending postcards out to a farm that my average sales price to list price was 102% for that year. And the neighbors don't care. But I made being known important, and I keep hearing the stat over and over again, and the number keeps rising where basically the consumer's hiring the first realtor they meet like 70% of the time.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be at scale the first realtor that they were seeing, speaking articulately and with brevity about the marketplace and my credibility.
It's wild to hear you talk about that shift from thinking about reality-based content as a negative to actually turning it into the first step in verification that a lot of people will take in understanding that you are who you say you are and can do what you say you can do.
Yeah.
Was that a strange kind of mental shift, or did it just make sense right away as you started to frame it kind of in place in real estate?
Well, I think when I started making YouTube content, I really had no idea what I was doing. A lot of people joke about me saying, "Hi guys, I'm Ben Belack, Beverly Hills Super Realtor." And the truth is, episode 1 on day 1, I just had seen some YouTube videos and people had an intro, and no joke, that just literally fell out of my mouth. And the camera guy laughed at the cheesiness of it. And I said, okay, there's something to that. It's polarizing. People are going to hate it. So they're going to talk about it. But I think ultimately culminating in Buying Beverly Hills, casting's biggest fear in reality television is someone's going to be a certain way in casting. And then once you've got all these large TV cameras, they're going to clam up. And for me, whether I was part of the casting recipe or not from the get-go, the one thing they knew was seeing all these episodes on YouTube, some of which that had in the hundreds of thousands of views, they knew that I was going to be that way on camera. Ultimately, for me, the mindset was there. I am so focused on being known that TV was going to be an amplification of that. And I was willing readily to give up my creative control in exchange for the platform. I knew I was giving that away, and it was certainly a quid pro quo that I welcomed.
So let's actually talk about the first half of that formula. YouTube was a launchpad for a lot of different media opportunities for you. Do you think that that's unique to you, or is YouTube a launchpad for anybody who has a message to share and wants to get their name out there?
The Los Angeles real estate agent, and I assume the New York real estate agent, is similar to that waiter at Spago, which, by the way, is what I was, although I didn't have this temperament, that because they're selling bottles of Petrus and bottles of Dom and all these expensive bottles, they start getting this air about them as if they are at the same, call it, economic status as the clients. And in Los Angeles, on 80-20 split with 2.5% commission for every $1 million you sell, you're netting about $20,000. If you sell a few homes a year, it's a pretty good living. So I feel like there was this false sense of professionalism and credibility. And when people started seeing me putting out a video a week, they were extremely judgmental about it. And they were apprehensive because of their perception of their own identity as a business person to get into video. That was a huge advantage for me. If we flash forward now, it is an extremely saturated and competitive space. So I know that with the right strategy, anyone can leverage YouTube, as it's the second most searched engine on the planet, behind the Google, which is owned by the same company, and they put each other's results together. But I do think, as I was somewhat innovative then, you have to be even more innovative now, because there's so many people online saying, hey, it's Ben Belack, welcome to 123 Main Street. Everyone's there. So if you do it consistently and you become innovative as a byproduct of that, you can certainly become successful doing it.
So let's talk about YouTube right now, because it is a platform that has changed significantly in even a short amount of time. If you're coaching somebody who's about to launch a YouTube channel, and they come to you and say, Ben, I need to know what the breakdown of content should look like. What are my first 20 videos here? Do you have, is that a formula that you already have in mind?
I think all of the algorithms like hyperlocal, all of them. I encourage all my team members, whether they like it or not, they should put on their Instagram, like, I'm the Studio City specialist, if that's where you live. And look, there are people outside of Studio City that are going to hire you because people hire who they know, like, and trust. And that's an easy objection to manage in an appointment anyway. But you want to be as hyperlocal as possible. So I would be doing the pros and cons of living in Bel Air versus Beverly Hills, the 5 reasons why you should absolutely not move to Santa Monica. All of these kind of clickbaity titles that serve the search results. I think the problem with the real estate agent and the entrepreneur today is extremely concerned with how they look, how they're going to be perceived, instead of who's my audience and what are they searching for. Because at the end of the day, and I used to tell my podcast partner this, it doesn't matter how funny we are. It doesn't matter how great we are. If we don't have algorithmic advocacy, no one's ever going to see it. Ever. It doesn't matter how good it is. So you want to reverse engineer your plan to get the algorithms pushing you.
You're hitting on what I feel like is a mistake that a lot of, especially early content creators make, which is they focus on the way the content makes them look, rather than first focusing on their audience and the needs, and then how the algorithm is going to deliver that content to audiences. So how do we get over this?
The hardest step is definitely the first one. Inspiration comes after action, not the other way around. Everyone's like waiting for inspiration to strike to do that thing that makes them feel uncomfortable. But frankly, it never comes. It only comes after you do the thing. So for me, once I started making more content, I cared so much less about making it perfect and more about it being done. And if you give yourself a cadence that's tough, like mine in the beginning was one a week, my show of sorts was starving for content. So I didn't have time to obsess
Yeah.
over certain things. I also did like little tricks. Like, for example, instead of being so freaked out trying to memorize the copy, get an iPhone app that's a teleprompter, have your camera guy rig it to the camera. I still do it today. I do these long walk and talks. People don't realize my phone is right below the camera attached, and I'm reading it at a pace that I'm comfortable with. And then we're 2 takes and it's done. So that's what I would say. You'll get over it just by doing it.
Do you have any thoughts on the future of YouTube? Like if I'm planning next year's YouTube strategy right now, are there bets that you're making on the sort of content that's going to make the most sense?
I think it really depends on what your goals are. If your goals are likes and followers, then you're going to have a different strategy. If your goal is actually to get business, then you're going to have a different strategy. What I would be doing is I would be looking at who seems to have a YouTube channel that is devised to get business. And then I would copy that formula and just make it your own personal style. For example, some of my colleagues in Los Angeles who I look up to tremendously and I call great friends, they have incredible YouTube following, but I guarantee they're not getting any leads from it because people go on YouTube to look at real estate porn a lot, and you can rack up views and followers that way. But ultimately, I think if you're, as an entrepreneur, going to deploy funds and time, which is what you trade on your time, especially as a real estate agent, when you're in 100% commission, you have to decide, like, what is my return of investment? And sometimes certain things like YouTube, the return of investment is, you know what? I don't call my clients as much as I should, but this episode is going to be in my email blast and it's a passive rapport and credibility reminder. There is a value in that since you're not calling your database as much. But I do think everything we do, including YouTube, should be towards getting leads.
You mentioned getting that YouTube video into your next email blast. Where is YouTube powering your marketing in other areas?
Well, I think the easiest way, and this isn't rocket science, right, is if you create a podcast for YouTube, right? Then you can transcribe that into a blog post, which helps for search engine optimization on Google. Then you can maybe chop up some of those episodes, make them an ebook, put that out on any of your social platforms and say, hey, if you want my free ebook on X, click here. They go to a landing page. You now have their email address. You can retarget them over time. Or you can also chop up the YouTube episodes into short form content for TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and Instagram. And so I think aside from the value of ranking in search engine results, everything starts with YouTube because YouTube can be made smaller and repurposed. So for those people that live on Instagram and TikTok, I would say, where do they fall in top search engine results? For me, my audience is on YouTube.
All right, one last technical question. When you're looking at YouTube performance, are you in the back in the creator studio? Are you looking at retention times and click-through rates? Tell me the number that if you could only look at one of these numbers that you're judging the success of your content.
The metrics that I look at and value most are who watched for longer than 30 seconds and what was the average watch time. The reason for that is because the platforms look at us as either an asset or a liability. An asset meaning the longer we're in, the more they can show us ads. So as a content creator, I want to keep people in because if YouTube can play them more ads, they're going to push the video more. So those, as long as those metrics stay important to YouTube, they're important to me. And as different metrics become important to them, then they will become important to me.
Ben, listening to your YouTube approach, it's so clear that YouTube and the video that you create there powers multiple parts of your business. Is there a future for video content that hasn't yet been written? Is there something that you're thinking about where video will play a role that it's not currently right now?
I often wonder, how do I get my videos in front of even more people? I'm at a point now where oftentimes when I'm pitching someone, particularly like an 8-digit listing,
Hmm.
I'm sending them so many video links. How do I get that to them before we even meet? I'm always thinking of new ways to get video in front of people sooner.
To our viewers at home, if you are ready to make an investment in your media strategy, visit luxurypresence.com to find out how we can help. Thanks, Ben, for joining us on the A-List.